A prophet's words. The head of Buddha, cast in white plaster, melts in the fierce storm that makes the puppies whimper. Nothing is left but his soft, smiling mouth. What he counseled slides away like wet words. This is what he taught, not words, not images, not puppies, nor people, but the manifestation of life when life is ready. And death, as meaningless as the melting plaster of a prophet's words. And I want to give you an example of a poem that I wrote for Kim. Kim wrote to me a poem that was full of images of eggs. And somehow those images of eggs just got to me. Now the poems we write to each other don't always sound like answers, but an image in one could evoke an image in the other. So this is one that I wrote for Kim after she wrote me a poem that was full of images of eggs. Eating eggs, scrambling eggs. Which poem is that? Anyway, you read it. You just
white people
have dogs, right? Your eggs, your mythic daughter. You can be my daughter, and I will be yours. Our ages don't matter, only that we correspond in poetry after a hearty breakfast. Because you remind me that poetry is the most delicious thing I do. You are my daughter, making daily life into poetry, the world in a shining yolk, a scrambled white with butter all over. Poetry is the most important meal of the day, without which we sicken and starve. And I'm going to read one more, sadly long, but I'm reading it from my friend Richard Danielpour, the composer. We've talked a long time about doing an opera together, and we've talked a long time about doing an oratorio together, and somehow the money just isn't there, right? Now, one of the things I like about writing poetry is that there's no money attached to it, so it cannot be corrupted. Yeah. No money whatsoever. So when you write a novel, you always know that you might send it to your agent, and your agent might say, I can't sell this. Which has nothing to do with what you wrote, of course. It has to do with what the what the publishers are buying that week. That week they may be buying novels about, I don't know, terrorists. Or they might be buying novels about women who aren't liberated, or mad housewives, as they were buying novels about when I wrote Fear of Flying. And I hated these mad housewife novels. Hated them. I don't know if you remember them. But there was one plot, and the plot basically was a woman was married to a terrible man. Usually he was a doctor or a lawyer, and usually he supported her. But he was terrible. He didn't fuck her well, he wasn't sensitive to her needs, and all she ever did was think, as she went to Bergdorf's or Bloomingdale's, how much she was disappointed in him, really disappointed in him. And so she would either jump out the window or have an affair, one or the other, she wasn't sure which. And this represented the female condition in the 1970s. And I thought, what is the matter with these women, these mad housewives? And I determined to write a different kind of novel. And a novel First of all, I always liked men. I'm not sure why. I always liked them. They smelled very good. And also, I had a grandfather who adored me and a father who adored me, so I liked men. I just thought they were great. And they were different from us. You know, their parts were different, their ideas were different, and I liked all of that. They made me crazy, of course, but I liked them a lot. Maybe at times too much. So I got very interested in Aphrodite. Aphrodite is a tricky goddess. The way the Greeks conceived of her, she is not a nice goddess. She puts people together who don't belong together and they fight like mad, or she puts Sylvia Plath with Ted Hughes and Sylvia commits suicide. Ted fucks everyone. After he died, it turned out that he had fucked absolutely everyone but not me. Although it was rumored, but he didn't, because I thought, this is a man who fucks everybody. He's not going to get me. Okay, so the Greeks conceived of Aphrodite as a very tricky goddess who put people together who didn't belong together and then sat up there on the top of Parnassus and laughed. What great entertainment mortals are for immortals. So I came to understand through research on my novel about Sappho that Aphrodite is not a nice goddess, but she's a clever goddess. Talking to Aphrodite. The priestess attempts to retire. Aphrodite, I have toiled in your service for 40 years, and I am still alive to tell it. Those I have loved, bandy-legged smiths and lost boys, defrocked shamans in the night, warlocks of the left, doctors who could not heal themselves, poets whose lives did not scan, gigolos tangoing on tossed bed sheets, I have mostly forgotten. But your service I have never regretted. It has brought me all the wisdom I have earned. Once a woman came to me in your likeness, eyes blue as the sea on a sunless day, skin pink as the dawn, rising over my Connecticut ridge at 4 when I awakened to your worship. I knew her as your stand-in and loved her as if she were myself in a mirror, all for love of you. But now I want to quit this worship, give up my priestess's robes of red, my gold chokers, my silver bells, my black pearls, and go naked into simplicity, becoming poetry's crone. A white witch of rhyme, a tree-hugging pagan philosopher, grandmother to my daughter's new green passions. But you, joker Aphrodite, send me another man to worry my pulse and fill my eyes with mischief, my skin with false dawn. What is another man but trouble? Sappho, being 50 and past mothering, her precious Cleis, loved a ferryman who ferried her to the cliff from which she jumped. Or so the story says. But what could Ovid and Menander know about the heat of a poet's heart tangled in a woman's breast? Take away this Phaon, this agate-eyed, aging Adonis, wooing me with words. But even as I say this, your most secret eyes meet mine. Just one more tumble into ecstasy you tease. Who knows what hymns to my glory you will sing at the peak of your powers? What are the lives of poets but offerings to the goddess they adore? Do you think such worship is a choice? Even immortals obey her capricious laws. In April, when the blood of Adonis blooms on every slope above the Mediterranean, my blood blooms too. Even Aphrodite bleeds where the great tusked boar gored her love. But she remains alive forever to her pain, the curse of goddesses. Adonis sleeps. Lethe is the milk of mortals. Some say Phaon was no ordinary ferryman, but a daemon who plied the glittering waters between Lesbos and the mainland. One day I arrived in the guise of an old woman, hairs sprouting from my chin, collapsed jaw, a few brown reeking teeth, sad dugs with nipples pointing earthward, feet yellowed with calluses, an aeolian lyre with broken strings in my brown dappled hands. But Phaon greeted me as if I were a girl of 20. His bright eyes revived me, made me young again. Asking only a kiss, he ferried me safely back to Lesbos. And for his pains, I gave him the fabled alabaster box filled with the magic unguent that makes women love. Phaon could have his pick of young buds. If he loved Sappho, he loved her truly, not for her youth, but for poetry and prescience. But Sappho was a mistress of imagined sleights, like all you self-singers. And when he rode in late, his muscled arms gleaming, his ferry decked with flowers, she cursed me, daughter of Zeus, for a fabricator of falsehoods, and cursed him for deceit, pelting his cheeks with fiery menopausal tears. She imagined maidens, her daughter's age, spread upon his bed of sea-born flowers, and leapt to her death from the Leucadian cliff simply to spite him. I am Aphrodite, and I sail the skies in a golden chariot drawn by swans that beat